The summer is here. That means outdoor festivals, Comic-Cons, and the perfect weather for toy hunts. As the weather heats up and you're out there enjoying yourself, stay hydrated with our show's sponsor, Liquid IV. Liquid IV hydrates 2 times faster than water alone and 3 times the electrolytes of traditional sports drinks. And it's easy to use. Just rip open a pouch, pour one of their delicious flavors into a water bottle, and shake it up. With sea berry, strawberry lemonade, Concord grape, lemon lime, pina colada, tropical punch, watermelon, guava, and more to choose from, there is a flavor for everyone. So whether you're on that long toy hunt, spending 10 hours on your feet walking your favorite Comic-Con, or getting your sweat on, stay hydrated and healthy with Liquid IV. Get 20% off when you go to liquidiv.com and use code AICPOD at checkout. That's 20% off anything you order when you shop Better Hydration today using promo code AICPOD at liquidiv.com.
Are you ready, kids? Get your parents' permission, check your mailbox, and grab your shopping cart. It's time for the Adventures in Collecting podcast.
I'm Eric.
And I'm Dave. Welcome to Adventures in Collecting, where we talk toy news, culture, and hauls,
along with our journeys as collectors. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Adventures in Collecting.
Hi.
Dave, we are back, and it's been an exciting few weekends of wrestling here. You know, we're coming in hot off of some big record-breaking events, especially in the world of AEW, right? So as we try to make the timing work out. Doesn't always happen, but sometimes we get very fortunate, and it does work. We have somebody here who works very closely on some AEW product. One could say,
yes.
Right? So we're growing our collection of folks from the Jazwares team.
One would say we're going all out today.
Oh, I like it. I'm all in on that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I had to do it.
Yeah, well,
you know how it goes.
Yeah, I mean, you go 1 week, and then, and next month we'll be living a wrestle dream. So
True. That's right. I forgot that they announced that actually. Yeah. So yet another pay-per-view. But we're gonna roll things back here for a moment. So first impressions, right? You only get one of those. That's the thing that's really unique about a first impression. And our first impression of any toy or collectible is the packaging. And for decades, today's guest has been designing some of the most iconic examples out there, from Marvel and WCW during his days at Toy Biz to AEW and Pokemon today at Jazwares. We are thrilled to welcome Jazwares Senior Director of Packaging Design, Chris Metzger. Chris, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah, man, it's one of those things where, like, it's obviously when people think of toy design, right? They go right to the articulation and the sculpt and the way that the figure looks and moves. But the unsung hero is how that toy looks hanging on the pegs, right?
My mindset has always been, right, the packaging is the product before the consumer opens it, right? So you have to have that hook, that first impression, to kind of take the consumer into the packaging, right? So I always say, like, most of the stuff that I do ends up in the trash, or in these days recycled, which I think is a good thing, right? So consumers buy it, bring it home. Some unbox it, some don't, but you're absolutely right. The packaging is a big player there for sure.
Well, before we get into go deep into your history and design and how you got to Jazwares where you are today, as this is a show about collecting, the first thing that we ask all of our guests on the show: what are you currently collecting?
Well, fellas, you're going to be disappointed. I am not a collector at all.
Really?
Really?
It doesn't have to be toys. It can be anything.
No. not a collector at all.
Wow.
You know?
I think that's a
So-
first. I think
That
you
Yeah.
are
Yeah, I think that is.
in 100 and what are we on? 117, 18, something like that episodes. I think you are
We'll
the
say 4 years.
Yeah, you are the first person who is not a collector on the show. So please leave. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Sorry. No, but what I can tell you though is the sort of the toys that I was fond of when I was a kid, right?
Yeah.
There's so many iconic things that folks collect now that were my go-tos and my favorites growing up, right? So you had the 12-inch GI Joes, right? The stuff with the real hair, scar on the face, that type of thing, and then the different sets of GI Joe with the white tiger, safari, right? And you had the shark and the amphibious vehicle. You had the astronaut Joe with the small capsule, that type of thing, right? And I was also into like the STP stuff, the ripcord stuff, right? And one thing that was one of my absolute favorites was the STP Smash and Bash Derby, I think it was called, or Smash and Slam Derby. So they had the the ripcord guys, and I guess there was a switch or something on the bumper, so when the cars collided, the hood would fly off, doors would fly off, the trunk would fly off. And as a kid, I was totally into wacky packs.
Oh, awesome.
All right.
Wacky packs, and they had the ones. It was they had sort of it was more of a fabric, printed on fabric type of thing versus paper at that point. So you have your jean jacket, and you would plaster all the wacky packs on the back of your jean jacket and that type of stuff. And so, but yeah, sorry to disappoint, guys. I am not a collector.
So I'm gonna pivot on that question. When did you stop collecting? Like, do you remember? Like, was there like a time in your life where like you can vividly remember like separating yourself from toys?
Thing is, I mean, as a kid, right? You're not necessarily a collector, right? You just wanted to build out the play pattern, build out the fantasy, right? In this case, GI Joe, go on GI Joe's adventures. Go with some things like even like the Bionic Man type of thing, so the 12-inch action figure is good. GI Joe with the Kung Fu grip. And then it was the I forget the company that did it, but there was Big Jim. I don't know if you guys remember Big Jim with the muscle, popping the muscle band. That was pretty intriguing as a kid, One and done play pattern, but you had to pop the muscle band every time, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, like I said, it wasn't necessarily collecting, it was just sort of building out, that world, where I grew up in New Jersey was just adjacent to the Pine Barrens. So it was this big sort of, sand clearing, right? So we used to create, and there used to be a washout where the water came, through the sewers, through the sand, right? So that was our Snake River Canyon, right? So we used to get our Evel Knievel's out, and reenact the whole Snake River Canyon thing. But yeah, like I said, it wasn't necessarily collecting. It was just, just doing cool stuff with your toys, and trying to recreate that moment.
So when did design come into play? How did you get into design, or even specifically designing packages?
Yeah. So I went to school initially for medical illustration, right? So I did 2 years of that. And I'm like, geez, I'm pretty much in a pre-med program here. I was taking physiology, biology, anatomy, some chemistry. After 2 years, you know what? Hey, I saw these people, they're doing graphic design. I'm like, what's graphic design? I don't know. It was, 18, 19 at the time. And I kind of asked them a few questions like, man, I'm switching my major to graphic design, right? So at the end of the day, when I graduated college, I ended up with a degree in graphic design. Did a couple freelance gigs here and there, but needed to make money. So I was working in a sort of cafe that was in the same office building as Tyco Toys, right? So I'm there prepping salads, slinging salads, taking orders, that type of thing. And a friend of mine who was the manager at the cafe was like, oh, I know this person from Tyco Toys, but well, you should go talk to her, right? So I go talk to her, and she was like, oh, we're totally looking for people. Can you do, this, that, and the other thing? I'm like, yeah, sign me up. Never done it before, but yeah, I could do it. Right. After talking to her, she's like, can you start next Monday as a freelancer? Right. So I freelanced there for probably about 6 months and, got hired full time as a designer, kind of worked my way up and ended up being the manager of packaging design there after it was 3 years, 4 years, maybe 5. First job. So essentially the first real job out of school was with a toy company. Left there, started my own business, had that for 20 some years, 25 years. Did a couple gigs here and there and ended up in Jazwares. So like I said, the first job out of school was in toys and always been, toys and kids entertainment ever since.
So, I mean, you've been, obviously hit the ground running there, but you've seen, in your time in toys, going from Tyco to like, again, where you are now at Jazwares, so many different IPs, so many different, aesthetics out there. What are some of the major differences between, packaging design when you got started to, how it happens today?
Great questions. There's actually, let me answer this in a couple different parts, right? So the first part would be the way a package was designed, right? Insofar as technology is concerned, right? When I started, there were no computers, right? You had a drafting table, you had a T-square, triangle, ruling pens, rapidographs, and you literally would design your package or lay it out all by hand, right? So you would do your sketches on like tissue paper or whatever, kind of figure out your design. There was no online photo resources where you can kind of slug in something as an FPO and kind of work. Every designer had this big set of barrel markers. There must have been, I don't know, like 96 different colors in this big marker set. So if you wanted, what an illustration of a Tyco RC car would look like, you'd have to sketch it out. You bust out your markers. You do the marker, marker comp, kind of paste it into your mock-up and your design, that sort of thing. Present it to brand. Hey, this is what we're thinking for design. Okay, let's do it. And then you'd have to do the mechanical, right? So you take a piece of board, put it up on your drafting table, get your ruling pen, do all your stuff, put your T-square. And the best part was the typesetting. Nowadays or whatever, you draw your text box wherever you want text on the packaging, blah, blah, blah. It's a little too big for it. You scale it down, you kind of shift it around. Well, when, prior to computers, you'd get a manuscript, right, from the copywriter or the marketing team or whatever, and you'd send that out to a typesetting house. And you'd have to spec the type. There was this whole thing called a Statler rule where you kind of count characters and kind of figure out what space goes in there.
Yeah.
A lot of math. There's a lot of math involved. So anyway, you get your galley or whatever back from the typesetting house. You'd have to paste it up in the mechanical, and you're like, oh crap, it doesn't fit. So you're cutting out stuff. So yeah, I think that's the biggest thing now. And one thing I think is important to know is, during the time pre-computer, you had to think, right? You had to plan out your design before you went and did it. You developed it, you put it in mechanical form, and then sent it out to do color separations and all that stuff. You really had to think about what you're doing because, like I said before, if the type didn't fit, oh crap, I got to get my X-Acto knife to put it in there or whatever. So I think, with the advent of computers, I think a lot of designers rely on the computer to figure out stuff for them. And sometimes they're limited by what the computer can do for them or what they know, right? So, I think designers need to think of the computer as a tool, as like I would like a T-square or a triangle or ruling pens or whatever back in the day, right? So the thing is, I think what's changed is, I've seen a lot of designers fall into the trap of having the computer design it for them rather than using the computer as a tool. Um, and so that's in terms of design, but in terms of the way the toy industry has evolved, right? I remember going to toy fairs. Geez, I've been going to toy fairs for almost 30 years in a row, right? and and you'd have these companies that develop these great IP, unique stuff, right? What was groundbreaking, mechanism or whatever that they build a line on, and then suddenly, it changed. It was like the advent of like hardcore licensing for toys, like following a tentpole major motion picture, all these evergreen properties, right? And suddenly the buzz at Toy Fair was, who came up with this great invention, this great unique product. It suddenly switched to, oh my God, did you hear who was the master toy licensor for Jurassic Park or something like that, right? Um, but early on in the licensing days, it was always like slap and adapt, right? They'd always just take, oh, let's put a ball and slap a Power Rangers logo on it. Let's a bat ball set. But I think the way the toy industry has evolved where there's more meaningful product development and packaging development based on licensed properties, right? I think the days of slap and adapt are over, where companies are now really embracing the brands and putting out very meaningful packaging and product for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's interesting too, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but it's almost gone. We talked about packaging being the first impression, but I feel like packaging has gone from something that is very utilitarian, like what's the most simple way we can get the toy in this box, and to these like and I think back to some of your work, which we'll get into, but like for instance, like the Silver Surfer packaging that you did when you were at Toy Biz, like the circular die cut box with the blister on it, like that is something that absolutely leaps off of the pegs at a store when you see something that's not in like that kind of rectangle with like rounded edges look to it. So I'd imagine too that do you think that that's really kind of technology that allowed as the technology progressed and like you said, like the industry itself changing, is that kind of what changed the overall style of the packaging too, like just to kind of keep up with the changes in the industry?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I mean, I think like early on, to your point, packaging was utilitarian, right? And you sort of had like the Me Too stuff, right? If my competitor blister card is a footprint of whatever dimensions and it's a square blister, blah blah blah, that we're going to do it too, right? So I think it was probably in, I want to say like late 90s, early 2000s. There was this whole sort of revolution of like, all right, toy companies are now embracing the packaging structure. Let's do things differently, right? To kind of get away from the Mego mindset, right? Where it was just, square card, square blister. And I think, in terms of technology, using the computer as a tool or whatever, you could probably do multiple iterations of your design more quickly and improve them out more quickly. But if you go back to the Silver Surfer thing, that was my first package that I ever said, hey, let's do it on metallic substrate, and we'll do it in 5 colors, meaning 4-color process, and then put in white to kind of mask out stuff and where you want it to be solid, and don't put white where you want the metallic to show through. So if you remember that package, Silver Surfer did have the 4-color processing, but it was blocked out in white, so all the Silver Surfer-ness came through, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, speaking of Silver Surfer, you've tackled everything from Spider-Man and Blade movie tie-ins with Marvel Toy Biz. to Pokemon and wrestling figures for a few different promotions now, and a few different companies, or a couple different companies. Are there any significant differences when it comes to working with all of these different IPs?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. A lot of times with packaging, if the IP is well established and kind of has their stuff together, they'll just throw out a style guide. Like here's a style guide that we need to follow. So we have the same visual retail presence across all consumer products, right? So if someone's doing bed sheets, stationery, toys, or whatever, there's a unified look across all brands, right? Sometimes you have liberty and leeway in the toy side to make the packaging a bit more toyetic and that sort of thing. Um, but what I do like is, I've worked on brands in the past, like AEW was one of them. Initially, like we really don't have a style guide. Whatever you guys come up with is fine. And actually, the same thing with the WCW stuff. When I worked worked with Toy Biz. And just to clarify, I did not work at Toy Biz. I worked with Toy Biz at my own company, right? And the same thing. We really don't have a style guide. What do you guys want to come up with? So we did, and it was great to see that other licensing partners at other manufacturers adopted our style guide that we did for toys across other product categories. And a challenge, and there are challenges too with some. I'm just gonna say some licensors are like, "Hey, man, love your work. You guys are doing great. Just do your thing." And there's some other licensors that are super and hyper protective of their IP and are just a bit more demanding than the others. So, but that's understandable, and you kind of sort of run the gamut there.
So you mentioned some of those the wrestling packaging. So the WCW Smash and Slam, TNA Impact, and now obviously AEW. What are some of your favorite designs? In that kind of wrestling category.
Yeah, no, it was funny. Working with Toy Biz, we were doing a bunch of Marvel stuff. We were doing the Spider-Man stuff, and it was like, hey, we got this wrestling thing, WCW. It wasn't really fun, or whatever. It's work. Let's do it, right? So it really got into it. And I remember one of their first offerings they did in the smaller figures. I think it was the not quite 6 inch, but in and around that scale. Was like the Smash and Slam stuff, right? So so we kind of, as a team, the company where that I owned and worked, we kind of came up with the whole structure of like the ring ropes in front, in the die cut ring ropes, and the insert track between the two blisters, and loved it. Everybody loved it, and I still see people doing it to this day, and I like to think that I was the early adopter there. So.
Yeah, that was an iconic. The say what you will about how the figures themselves have aged, but like the way that those were presented, the Smash and Slam, and personally the Ringmasters, I loved the Ringmasters packaging. Those figures were ridiculous, but like honestly, for the longest time, the only Chris Jericho figure that you could get,
the lion tamer,
was the lion tamer one. And I still have two complete figures from that line. I have Chris Jericho one, and I have Hollywood Hulk Hogan with the director's chair and the.
I know, it was so crazy. They had Goldberg, like his signature move was a jackhammer, so he was dressed up like a construction worker, right?
Yes.
And then Scott Steiner, as the gargoyle bulldog thing or whatever.
And then Bret Hart was an actual hitman.
The hitman, with the pinstripe, 1920s Chicago gangster, suit.
Little on the nose, but it worked.
Yeah, I remember seeing the Smash and Slams for the first time, thinking like, "Oh, this is different. Like, I've never seen anything like this before." And I even remember like the Impact ones with the big logo across the front. Yeah, just some great stuff.
No, it was super fun. Yeah, that was yes, really memorable times. Working with Toy Biz, and and Toy Biz actually went through a couple uh, permutations, right? So it was Toy Biz, and then Toy Biz actually bought Marvel. Then it was Marvel Toys.
Yep.
And they kind of just like, oh, hey, let's be in the IP business versus the toy business. So they just were licensing all their IPs out. Their biggest partner still to this day, Hasbro. And no, it was just crazy, and they were just making more money, less risk and more money by not manufacturing anything, and just licensing out their IPs, and just became an entertainment company.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Marvel Legends still going strong.
Yeah.
And actually, the OG Marvel Legends logo, not a great design in my mind, but my company had done that with the bars behind it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Like the OG Marvel Legends,
Yeah.
They actually recently, Hasbro recently, I want to say recently, I think it's already like a year ago, did an anniversary line where they put out new versions of that first wave, and they used the old logo on the packaging for them. It was very nostalgic seeing it again.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember like some of the Toy Biz stuff were the famous cover series.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, worked on those, and then not wildly popular Marvel's Famous Couples, right?
Mm-hmm.
Remember those?
Wait, yeah. So did you work on the packaging for what is arguably one of the most infamous releases of all time? And I wish I had it, or had it with me. It's currently in my. I was
gonna say you better still have it.
The Aunt May figure, famous covers, that black and gold.
Yep. And it kind of had a sort of the Art Deco kind of thing around it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh man. We can't escape that release. The release that it literally ruined Aunt May figures for Jesse Falcon over at
forever.
Yeah.
Until recently.
Yeah, I know Jesse. Yeah. And do you know for some of the Spider-Man toys that had a voice or whatever, like Spider-Man, Jesse was the voice of Spider-Man.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, next time we get his ear, we'll have to have him recite some lines for us.
So I remember telling stories like there was really no recording studio. They would go into like some sort of like supply closet and like a makeshift like recording setup. It's like, everybody be quiet. I got to record lines for whatever product that this sound is going to go into.
Oh my God.
And now, a word from our sponsors.
This segment is brought to you by our friends at Chubsy Wubsy Toys. A traditional mom-and-pop toy store in Little Falls, New Jersey, Chubsy Wubsy Toys brings you the best new toys from the brands you love without the hassle of pounding the pavement searching for them at larger retail stores. Visit them in person at their brand new home at 101 Newark Pompton Turnpike, Suite 1 in Little Falls, New Jersey, or online at chubsywubsy.com. That's CHUBZYWUBZZY.com. And tell them Adventures in Collecting sent you.
Rewind and press play on your VHS collection with CGC. CGC is excited to announce our newest collectible vertical, CGC Home Video. As a division dedicated to authenticating and grading your VHS collection, our experts are ready to help you encapsulate your favorite video cassettes. Don't settle for static on the screen. Submit today at cgcgrading.com. That's cgcgrading.com.
Face it, shaker bottles suck. Your shakes always come out clumpy and they're a pain to clean.
You're right, Dave. That's why I decided to ditch my shaker bottle for good and get myself a BlendJet 2 portable blender. It makes perfectly blended shakes in just 20 seconds.
BlendJet 2 is portable. so you can blend up a smoothie at work, a protein shake at the gym, or even a margarita on the beach. It's small enough to fit in a cup holder, but powerful enough to blast through tough ingredients like ice and frozen fruit with ease.
BlendJet 2 is whisper quiet, so you can make your morning smoothie without waking up the whole house. It lasts for over 15 blends and recharges quickly via USB-C.
Best of all, BlendJet 2 cleans itself. Just blend water with a drop of soap and you're good to go.
With an array of colors, patterns, or even Disney-inspired designs to choose from, show off your personality while you're blending up something delicious on the go.
What are you waiting for? Go to blendjet.com and grab yours today.
And be sure to use the promo code AICPOD12 to get 12% off your order and free 2-day shipping. No other portable blender on the market comes close to the quality, power, and innovation of the BlendJet 2. They guarantee you'll love it or your money back. Blend anytime, anywhere with the BlendJet 2 portable blender. Go to blendjet.com and use the code AICPOD12 to get 12% off your order and free 2-day shipping. Shop today to get the best deal ever.
And now, back to the show.
So, whether it's based on look of a character or just being a fan, who are some of your favorite wrestlers you've designed packaging around?
It was actually funny. One memorable moment comes to mind. So I was in there's been so many of these fan fests and things. I think it might have been in Chicago last year, maybe Vegas. I'm not sure. So one of the things that we like to do with these fan fests, and we have these panels and stuff, we like to kind of pull in talent to kind of just, have some great interaction, not only with us, the panelists, but with the crowd as well. So we kind of had like this little green room sort of pipe and drape thing set up behind the panel stage, and Sting was there. And I'm not a mark at all, man. I consider like all the wrestlers that I interact with is just guys that I work with to do my job or whatever, right? So Sting is sitting there, and I'm like, Sting, I'm not that guy, man. I'm really not that guy. But I've put you in a package 20 years ago, and I'm still putting you in packages today. Can I just get a picture with you, right? So it's like you did it, right? So like going from like the red face, the NWO red face Sting, right, to the San Diego Comic-Con exclusive with the coffin. It's just so trippy to just go from 20 years ago doing from one older version to a sort of contemporary version. And I did hear through the grapevine that Sting said when he saw this package, like, this is one of the best, the San Diego Comic-Con one, this is one of the best packages that I've ever seen that I'm in, type of thing. So
Well, you and the Stinger are drinking from that same fountain of youth, because you're still putting him in packages, but he's still getting into packages.
Yeah, but I'm not jumping. I'm not jumping off a 10-foot ladder, into a table. The guy's 62 years old.
Yeah, I was gonna say I was hoping you were gonna say Sting, because it was like over 3 companies worth of figures. Yeah. So that's. Yeah. But either I or even Joe or like Christian, I think, was one of those like multiple company guys. Jericho,
yeah.
So it's got to be neat to see like them. Okay, I worked with this guy when he was 20 years ago, and now just to see them still at it, or even like 15 years ago, whatever the case may be. Like that's got to be cool, and like a cool testament to kind of the longevity of all of this stuff.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And I think what I like to see in the toy industry is, you're absolutely right, that the longevity in these evergreen brands, right? Fads come and go, and something may be popular for a decade, maybe 5 years. Look at like Cabbage Patch or whatever. Made its money, kind of going by the wayside. But I just love to see these brands that are just evergreen. Like Pokemon's one of those brands that I'm fortunate to work on. So and I think it's a testament to not only the licensee and the licensors too, for just continue to make themselves relevant. So.
And you brought up Pokemon, and I feel like as two very big wrestling fans, that tends to be our focus when we think about Jazwares right now. Just everything that's going on with AEW, but to take a moment to talk about Pokemon as well. You designed the Pokemon Select boxes that those super articulated figures are in. That must have been a really cool opportunity because there's never really been Pokemon figures like that before.
Yeah, for sure. A big shout out to my team, John and Ryan on that one there too. But it's like we were fortunate to sort of have that opportunity, right? So we had the main line, which is your typical red package or whatever. And then we kind of, sort of have the plussed up characters with the super articulated or whatever, in our select collection, right? So, the challenge there was how do we differentiate the mainline packaging with the select packaging, right? So we employed, most of the visual elements, but just treated them in a different way, right? So on the mainline stuff, you have the red with dark red Pokeball pattern field on there or whatever. So, for select, we took like sort of the tone on tone dark gray on there, and rather than treating a full color character representation, kind of went with the line art tone on tone thing to give it a more of a collector vibe. But yeah, like Pokemon's been really, really supportive of Jazwares, and kind of has let us go into categories and sub segments or sub lines where some of their licensors haven't gone before, or I'm sorry, some of their licensees haven't gone before. So it's so awesome to work with such an iconic brand. What are they going on, 25 years now or whatever?
Yeah, just over.
And it's a number one grossing IP ever.
Yeah.
So it's pretty amazing, right? So and to me it's kind of funny. It's just like when I first started my company, and then since moved on to Jazwares and others, and then ultimately Jazwares. People say, "What's your business plan?" Right? And my business plan was simple. I want to work on brands that people has heard of, right? That are household names.
Yeah.
Because I remember when I was doing like freelance and stuff, did a couple stints at various advertising agencies. And I'm working. I'm like, I don't know. I was doing ads and catalogs for it was called the Shermatic 2000. What is the Shermatic 2000, you ask? It's basically a sausage maker.
Great.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. Because they're claiming to fame, had a bigger hopper than any sausage making machine out there.
as a podcast that is very much so directed to a niche, that is a niche. That is.
Yeah, if you ever wanted to find out
yeah.
how the sausage was made,
exactly. I was going to say. Exactly. Good segue. Good tie-in.
But the one thing with that I wanted to ask with Pokemon that I was just thinking about as you were kind of talking about kind of defining like style guides and using style guides. Pokemon has like a very distinct look at retail, like that red, that white, like the Pokeball colors, which is why I was so kind of blown away that I guess for the lack of a better term, like they trusted Jazwares enough, and they trusted the creative team enough to let you do like you said, like that tone on tone, black and silver. Like it's a very unique look for that brand.
Yeah, for sure. So that was a true collaborative effort there, right? So it was TPCI themselves, Jazwares, and there was also a third-party design shop that kind of worked through some of the designs with us, and us being the master toy licensee, we are able to contribute to that end result there too. So it was a full on collab. The first go round with the packaging before it was refreshed, it kind of had like that blue kind of energy field that came around and stuff. That was all Jazwares for sure. Yeah.
So, sticking in this kind of line of unique packaging, let's go back to wrestling now. You've had the opportunity to design some pretty insane one-offs for AEW, especially for the ringside collectibles exclusives. The bit of the bubbly, the Jurassic Express, the Danhausen, and then the most recently revealed Death Triangle 3-pack. A nice trifold. Where do these ideas come from? Because they are, like, honestly, they're some of if not the most unique packaging I think any collector has seen across toys.
Yeah, for sure. I think one of the advantages there is like you're not beholden to a line look, or you have to roll out various assortments or product categories for an entire line, right? So you don't have to translate Pokemon Plastic to Pokemon Plush to Pokemon Select to the Surprise Attack game or whatever. These are those unique moments in time, right? So you can pretty much, you have carte blanche, right? So your creative license is what you make of it, right? So I like to say, a lot of these things design themselves, right? So a little bit of the bubbly, obvious. let's make it, let's make it a champagne bottle, right? So the biggest challenge there, like, how can we mass produce this without being, too costly, or not get the end result that we think it ought to be, right? We want to preserve that quality and integrity of what we're trying to achieve here. So that was a lot of back and forth, little bit of bubbly, for example. That was a lot of back and forth with our Asia team, the factories to kind of get it just right. At the end, I think the end result speaks for itself. It was an awesome package, right? To the Danhausen one with the cape thing there, right? Yeah. So Steve Dizak, right, who's on my team, he's a big Batman fan, so he was inspired by the Batman sort of thing, right? And he came with the design and said, well, this is like one of those things where I don't think we can Frankenstein or cobble the photos together or the photography together based on what we get that's available to us from AEW with all their studio shots, right? This is gonna require a photo shoot. So one of the fan fests or whatever, kind of went up to Danhausen. I'm like, Donovan, showed him the concept. Can we do this? Like, yeah, dude, let's go up to see Speedy. Speedy's the in-house AEW photographers. It's like, yeah, let's get it done or whatever. So kind of art directed him and did the whole thing. And what's great about AEW is that relationship that we have, not only with the AEW management team, but with the talent itself, right? Sammy's always hitting me up like, dude, when am I going to see such a package? I heard you guys are doing it. I'm like, dude, I can't, or whatever. So it's really, it is a true collaboration, right? So, and I think, in the end result, the packaging shows like we could have done that Danhausen thing effectively if we didn't have that access to the talent, right? And it was not even scheduled, like an impromptu thing. I'm like, Donovan, can we just I showed him things like, so yeah, let's do it. Whatever you need, And, it's awesome, right? And again, with the Death Triangle thing, I think one of those things, like, yeah, it designed itself, basing everything off the triangle, right, or whatever. But I was thinking, like, what could be like a cool unboxing, make it yet compact for shipping, purposes, but how can it be displayed on shelf by the collector? So we kind of came up with the whole triptych thing where they all kind of fold into this truncated triangle. When you fold them out, you get 3 abreast. I can see all the figures in a more sort of horizontal, not as deep, shelf-friendly format, right? So, and just screwing around and poking through some ideas, and this is where we landed, right?
And it kind of evokes their entrance too, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So are you ever given, with these kind of one-off projects, like, do you have, obviously outside of like, the inside baseball stuff about budgets and everything, but like,
Sure.
do you have a certain like a list of constraints that you have to work with? Like you mentioned, for instance, like it being able to ship easy or it being able to display, like, are you?
Yeah. I mean, I think that stuff comes with, the end result, right? And then it comes with experience, right? And it comes with, knowing the collector, knowing the retail space, and in this instance, it's sort of e-com space with Jonathan and Trevor over at Ringside or whatever. But it's you have to take all those things into consideration, right? So a lot of times what we do, we just kind of like what can it be? We just throw in all the bells and whistles, and sometimes it's like we have we got to cut some costs here, we got to come in where we need to be, price wise, wholesale price or whatever. So there's things that you can do. So there's trade offs, but sometimes you try to make the best of those trade offs. So I done some packaging where like this is what it's going to be. It's like, wow, man, it's way too expensive. So you have to pivot, right? But yeah, no, it's there's a lot of considerations, right? Especially too, Jazwares is doing a whole sustainability sort of initiative here, right? So we're trying to cut out as much plastic as we can. In our packaging, and we're switching from switching from PVC to PET, which is a more widely recyclable material. You were switching from sort of petroleum-based inks to soy-based inks, that kind of thing, and minimizing a footprint of a package to kind of have a smaller case pack. And a smaller case pack means you can put more master cartons in a container, so you're more efficient there. So and all that good stuff. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot that goes into it. Like you said before, like the inside baseball stuff. Yeah, it's not like we run around in the studio with our berets on and our smocks and our paintbrush, and we go nilly-willy. It's like creative. You gotta respect the business side of stuff.
Yeah, and we've had this conversation before with other people who work with professional wrestling talent with AEW and otherwise. It does kind of seem like a little bit of a blessing that like action figure culture is so pervasive in wrestling. Like these superstars, these wrestling icons, whether they're new to the business or somebody like Sting who's been there for so long, like becoming an action figure is like a badge of honor for a wrestler. So it's just great to see that like that excitement carries into the actual like business side of it, where they're like, no, what can I do to help? How can I make
oh, exactly. They're so supportive. If we need to cut a video, you need to report or support something, on my social thread, happy to do it, that type of stuff. And you're going back like the whole badge of honor. I remember, I think we were in Orlando, right? And we showed Ricky Starks, who actually had a really good fight last weekend, I thought.
He did.
Yeah.
That strap match was unbelievable.
I know. Yeah. And I remember sitting in the hotel in Orlando, showed him, like, I think it was Magic or Greg showed him his first figure, and the dude just needed a moment and just started bawling. And it was just so awesome to see, you know what I mean? And he told this story, it was just like he didn't think it would happen. His career was kind of in flux, and he kind of got signed to AEW, and now he has an action figure, and it was like crazy, right? Yeah, but that strap, and go back to the strap match, that was awesome. And then we had, I don't know if you guys saw the StarCast thing where Danielson kind of crashed our StarCast.
Yes.
Well, crashed our StarCast.
Yeah, no, yeah, he was when he had that one part of the match when he had Ricky kind of tied up in the corner and was just wailing away on him with that strap. Is just those are some stiff shots.
Oh, by the way, working basically to one arm because he's fresh off a broken arm. That's
that's right.
Probably still.
Yeah. No, it was a good match.
Yeah.
But like going back to it's moments like those, like, I think, the Jazwares AEW partnership is truly, an amazing one. It really is. Just having access to the talent. He's like, the talent be like, oh, here's my cell, hit me up anytime. Here's this. It's like where else can you get that? I don't think WWE is doing that, with their talent for sure. But the accessibility, and it just makes our job easier, not only in the product side and the packaging side. It's a really, really fortunate situation for us for sure.
So I think with that, it's time to head into our Q&A section. This is the portion of our show where we have collected questions from our followers and our listeners. Dave, please remind our listeners how can they make their questions available for these segments.
So if you're listening to this and you're not following us yet on Instagram at AIC_podcast or on YouTube at, is it Adventures in Collecting Podcast, all one word?
Yes.
Okay. Or at Adventures in Collecting Podcast, all one word. You should be. Because if you smash on those subscribe buttons and hit those likes for those videos, and on YouTube, hit that little bell. It'll let you know when there's a new video. But on the Instagram and on the X, I guess it is now.
On the X. X marks the spot.
You can actually see who the next guest is going to be. And on Instagram, we put up a nice little story. And on that story, it says, do you have any questions for this guest? And you can ask that guest a question, but only, and only, I mean only, if you subscribe, because that's the only way you're going to see it.
Dave, I think that's your best one yet. Like you hit like a really good like cadence and a really good momentum there. I think you're finding your way.
I know what some of this stuff means now. So I've graduated to now I'm somewhat learned, and here we are.
Dave, you are enough. You are enough.
All right.
So let's jump.
Somebody finally.
Let's jump right into this Q&A here. Dave, why don't you start us off?
Yeah, and we're starting off with friend of the pod at Toy Farce. He asks, the AEW Supreme packaging displays accessories in a very unique way. How did you wind up with the side display windows?
Wait, what, Dave? That was a question. I was just still entranced by your...
Me too. I think I went into the zone a little bit.
Yeah, like you went to like a fugue state. It was...
my eyes were doing something crazy.
We were here for it.
No, that was a lot of back and forth, right? So the idea was, because of the Supreme, is an elevated figure in terms of the accessories, ring gear, that type of stuff. So we wanted to really show off that moment in time, right? So, when the talent or the wrestler is coming down, this is with the old stage where it had the rounder tunnel opening, like kind of coming through the opening, going down to the ramp to the ring. We wanted to capture that moment, right? And we really wanted to show off the quality and the attention to detail of the ring kit that the wrestler was wearing, at that time, right? And you kind of see other competitors packaging who shall be nameless, or nameless rather. They kind of like did the value play. Here's our figure and here's all the stuff that you get with it, right? Blah blah blah, right? So I think after going through with the team, we were like, hey, you know what? if we just kind of capture the moment with this figure, show the entrance gear as best we can, we don't want to muddy up the scene. And I was like, hey, what if we put the stuff on the sides? You still get you still get to see all the stuff, but for the guy who's a mid on card collector or whatever, wants to put it on the shelf, put it in his man cave or whatever, you have this really nice presentation of the toy itself. So it was just kind of like one of those things, like, let's not muddy it up, right? There was not say a lot of controversy at Jazwares about that. We kind of worked through it, and they kind of like saw the light on this one, and like, okay, we get it. Let's keep this stuff on the side.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those more, again, like a unique treatment where I think you mentioned kind of the value prop, but I think there actually is I think that could be said about this too, right? Because you get kind of that threefold. You get the the entrance moment captured. You get the really nice art on the back of the box. That is commemorating that same moment. And then when you turn it around, you really can see, and it plays to the kind of unique build of the figures, right? Like there's really no other line out there that's doing the swappable legs and the
and I think too, like you mentioned, that I just think it would look silly if you see this sort of truncated figure, just the legs, So, and that was another reason to do it, sort of, and it ended up in our favor. We kind of put that stuff to the side for sure.
It's a super clean presentation, and I like how it's kind of gone into some of the exclusives too. Like Blood and Guts has it. I think the initial Cody TNT champion does too.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which I would imagine Sammy will as well.
Yeah.
It's very similar.
And exactly, it's one of those things. We always try to capture that moment in time, but also, keep the collector in mind. It's just like, we're capturing that moment in time. It's that Polaroid. It's that snapshot. Rather than like, it comes with 3 heads, comes with 3 sets of hands, comes with the soft good, comes with this. But I think like I said, having the collector in mind, has served us well for sure.
Now I'm sitting here laughing, thinking, of all of the action figures I've seen over the years, especially recently, where like, people are like, figure swapping and taking stuff out of the package. I could picture some parent looking at, the Supreme the Supreme packaging, were it not laid out the way that it was, going, I can't buy this. Somebody stole half the figure. There's
yes, exactly. No, it's so funny. You talk about like the whole like figure swapping or whatever, returning back to the store. We've actually got, not complaints, but issues raised to our customer service department. Would be like, I bought this figure, but it's wearing a such and such shirt from WWE. Like either A, are they like, not necessarily as a mistake. They thought they maybe have some sort of like factory mix-up thing at first. Like, is the factory doing stuff for AEW and WWE, and did the WWE shirt, landed up in AEW packaging? But it was like the whole figure swap thing where people are just putting in whatever, and returning it to get the piece or part or entire figure,
So actually, side question I just thought of. Speaking of like super unique stuff, like the Supreme, I think kind of low key the that initial Cody TNT champion packaging is kind of one of the best, because I kind of consider the packaging like an accessory too. How'd you come up with that translucent, like the idea for the translucent background for the screen?
Yeah, so that was like a really collaborative group effort there. We kind of like captured that moment in time, blah blah blah. Coming through the entrance, and somebody was like, hey, we should put like the thing behind something. Like, what if we put it on acetate and print it, kind of like an Easter egg? Don't promote it. And a couple people figured out like, hey, if I put a flashlight behind it or put my phone behind it, it'll kind of illuminate like the older stage, like when they had the screen above the entrance tunnel. But yeah, no, it was again trying to capture, with the collector in mind, trying to capture that moment in time,
So on to our next question. Past guest and friend of the pod at Nostalgic Adam asks, If you could design packaging for any brand or product, it does not have to be a toy, what would it be?
That's a tough one because, being in the toy world all my professional life. But I would say like anything that's sort of useful and, can benefit man in some way. Don't know what a product is, but just kind of promote the greater good there.
Oh, you know what? I have an idea.
Go ahead.
What about a meat grinder?
Shermatic 2000.
I was expecting a real answer, and I should have known otherwise. You reeled me in.
No, that's a tough one, But I think just I just think the basic tenets of design should just hold true. Be true to the brand. Don't leapfrog somewhere where it shouldn't be, right? I've always said, like, one of my longstanding tenets is, don't try to shoehorn the brand into something to a place where it ought not to be. Just kind of let it land where it wants to land, not where it needs to land, right? And I think if you, like I said, you try to shoehorn it into a space, it just gets kind of complicated, messy, and confusing.
Good words to live by. Dave,
Yeah.
Dave, do you want to do oh boy. Do you want to do the final one?
Yeah. Sure. This one does not mention a meat grinder, I promise.
That we know
our
of.
mutual that we know of. Well, that we know of. Our mutual friend Aaron, the man with the red mane, asks, "What's your best story you have from coaching rugby?"
I would say not necessarily coaching rugby, but refereeing rugby, right? So I'm also a rugby referee, right? So the thing with rugby is, unlike football, soccer, or baseball, they're not called rules. In rugby, they're called laws, right? So the referee or the sir, which is there, so I forget the rule number exactly, but there's a law in rugby that says the sir, meaning the referee, is a sole judge of fact and law. That's a law in rugby, right? So basically, if the referee doesn't see it, it didn't happen, right? And so there's this weird kind of respect for the referee. Everyone calls him sir, right? So I was doing a high school match or maybe in a college match. I'm not quite sure what it was. Something happened where I didn't think it was an infraction, so I let it go. So all I hear from the sideline is one of the coach or another player from the opposing team yell, "What the F, sir?" So I was like, okay, I'll allow it. He treated me with respect. He called me sir, and I'll allow it. So, but he didn't use he used the full F word.
That's the sweetest way to have cursed at anyone ever.
Yeah. What the F, sir?
I didn't know that. I didn't know that referees in rugby were called sir.
And there's only one referee on the pitch at any given time. You have the sort of ARs, which is basically, the equivalent of side judges in soccer, guys with the flag.
Yeah.
But you're just one guy on the pitch covering, 50 meters by 100 meters, 100 meters long, 50 meters wide.
That is a lot of ground to cover.
Yeah, significant space.
So if I get yelled at, what the F, sir? Just one guy.
That's a T-shirt, to be honest.
Yeah.
Well, sir, you have survived our Q&A.
We did it.
And speaking of covering a lot of ground, we did just that. But before we let you go, we do have one final question. Dave, would you like to fulfill your role as this podcast's James Lipton and ask our final question?
Why, yes, I would. Now, we had to alter the final question due to the fact that Chris does not collect toys. However, we've come up with something suitable. So, sir, the final question that we ask all of our guests: what is your favorite and or strangest package that you've worked on? It can be one of each, or it can be both.
Well, I did one, which is not suitable for the air. Let's just say it's when I was doing a consulting gig for Spencer's, and it was one. You
said all you need to say without saying anything.
Okay, but I
so was that the favorite or was that the strangest?
Fave strange.
It could be both. It's in the rules.
All right. But one thing that comes to mind is, I think like one of the coolest things that Toy Biz had done with the WCW stuff, right? You sort of get like, back in the San Francisco toy makers or whatever, when they were doing the WWE figures or whatever, like they were action figures, right? So they, when WCW put the stuff in a truly innovative toy company, and you had like, yes, you had mentioned Ringmasters, but do you guys remember Gross Outs?
I do.
All right, so like Sting had a mask on. You take off his mask, he was a zombie face. I think there was a Goldberg where you squeeze his belly and his eyes bulge out.
I do remember these now. Yeah, because Sting kind of looks like Ratfink.
Yeah, like a shriveled old zombie. Yeah.
Yes, I remember these.
I remember them.
Yeah.
I remember them.
So that was fun and also strange because, as I don't know, WCW at the time or whatever, as a licensor, like how would they allow that? It has nothing to do with wrestling.
I remember the Sid Vicious one. I don't remember them being called Gross Outs. I just remember them being like weird monsters. But I remember the Sid Vicious one vividly. That thing was everywhere.
Oh, like he's like Frankenstein almost.
Yeah, as the top of the head comes off and you can see his brain.
Yeah. And I think it was Goldberg whose eyes bulged out or something. There was one of them. But yeah, that was fun and strange.
Yeah, those are weird. And for some reason there is like a weird recurring theme where like a company tries to do zombified or like monster versions of wrestlers. At this point, Jazwares is due. Like the cycle has completed itself. We're ready for the hey, maybe we'll get the Texas Chainsaw Matt. What did they call it?
Massacre Texas
Chainsaw Massacre Deathmatch.
Leatherface.
There's a 3-pack for you. Let's get
Leatherface is part of WCW canon.
I heard.
I'm sorry, AEW canon. That reminded me of WCW for a minute.
I don't know if this is true, but I heard Tony Khan was actually the one wearing the Leatherface costume. That's the prevailing rumor.
I can categorically deny nor confirm that. But I think actually. The funny you should ask that because we did inquire about that, but that was a promo for
the video game.
The video game.
That was a paid promo.
Now I say that was very WCW, but I enjoyed it because when I was a kid, I thought like RoboCop being in WCW was the coolest thing of all time. So
yeah.
That would make like for an awesome like San Diego Comic-Con exclusive. No doubt. And it was funny too because I know the guy. Dave Imoff, his name is. He's a licensor guy. He used to work at I forget the name of the movie company, but he has his own licensor and he handles like all the horror, like Leatherface, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, a bunch of other properties he handles. Like I was like, hey, if we want to do it, I know the guy. We could probably get a deal, but alas, it was a promotion and nothing to do with the storyline or the show. Bummer. Well, Chris, with that, we've reached the end of the interview here. And before we say goodbye for now, can you tell our guests where can they find you online? Where can they find out about the incredible work that Jazwares is doing?
So I would say for AEW stuff, I would follow AEW by Jazwares, and just Jazwares in general. And for myself, I believe my Instagram handle is C_M_Metzger, Metzger. Yeah. Yeah, so that's where you can find me. Follow me.
And do you have any more stand-up gigs coming up that you want to plug?
Working on it. All
right. Well,
I was supposed to do one in Chicago with Bellcaster, and the place where we're going to hold it at actually had a gas leak. But I find that dubious and suspicious. So,
well, we'll definitely keep an eye out for your upcoming gigs, and we'll be sure to share them out there, and we'll put links to all of the handles that Chris just mentioned in the show notes, so you can just go right there, tap away, make sure you follow everything. Chris, thank you so much for joining us tonight. This was an absolute pleasure, and I can't wait to see what you and the team do next.
Yeah, my pleasure, fellas. No, thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Dave, send us home.
Light the fuse, bring the boom, dynamite.
Thank you, dear listener, for hanging out with us today. Subscribe, rate, and review us wherever you listen, and then tell your friends to do it. Thanks also to Joe Azzari, the golden voice behind our intro. Our music is Game Boy Horror by the Zombie Dandies. Find more about them both in our show notes.
Follow us on social media at AIC_podcast on Instagram and Twitter. Stop by and say hi, show us your toy hauls, and share your toy stories. Maybe we'll talk about it in a future episode.
Don't try this at home. Void where prohibited and some assembly required. Each sold separately, not a flying toy. Consult a physician if your toy run exceeds more than 4 hours.
This has been a non-productive media presentation. Executive producer, Frank Hablawi. This program and many others like it on the Non-Productive Network is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives license. Please share it, but ask before trying to change it or sell it. For more information, visit non-productive.com.